ladies and gentlemen. Now, when we got Brexit, in inverted commas, did we really believe that having Brexit involved, leaving a large chunk of the United Kingdom still under the control of the EU? No. And yet, that was what we got. This government has abandoned Northern Ireland. Yes. Successive prime ministers agreed treaties that entrenched that abandonment. It began with Theresa May. And then Boris came along and took the May deal and he tinkered with it. And he said, oh, look, deliverance, here's a completely new deal. And then when that failed, Rishi came along and he tinkered with the tinkering of the original. And he said, oh, look, here's a completely new deal. 3 massive lies by consecutive Conservative prime ministers. What we needed to do right at the start was to say, Brexit really means Brexit. And what Brexit means is the EU has no more jurisdiction in any of the UK at all. And that, I think, was what we thought Brexit meant. But we didn't have that guts. Now let's actually dispense with one big lie, which says that if you're to have a trading arrangement with a big bloc, then it is necessary to have some overarching law that binds all parties. What overarching law is there in the deal we've just got in the Pacific with major economic powers who are not using a trading arrangement with us to interfere in our domestic affairs? It can be done. It can be done, and it should have been done. Oh, they all paid lip service to it. Do you remember Theresa May? No deal is better than a bad deal. And then she gave us the worst possible deal. And then along came Boris and he said, no deal is better than a bad deal, and if necessary, we will rip up the protocol. And then he gave us just a slightly less bad deal. And then Rishi Sunak comes along and says, you know, we've got a completely new beginning, apparently, according to Rishi Sunak, if you listen to him. He says Northern Ireland can veto EU law. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a straightforward lie. It cannot. Oh, certainly it's theoretical in certain circumstances, but you might as well put somebody in a cell, lock the door, and then say to them, oh, you can come out as long as you can work out how to pick the lock. And that is effectively what they've done with Northern Ireland. They have so hedged about the Stormont break that it is no break at all. And that is what we need to understand. And we were lied to when Rishi came back from that yet another negotiation. You don't have to negotiate a departure. You just go. And if we had just gone, then we could have negotiated the trading arrangements from a position of absolute sovereignty, instead of which we negotiated it from a position of still being half in and half out. Now, during that referendum campaign, I heard strong arguments for staying in. I heard stronger arguments for coming out. But I never heard a single argument for coming out and then acting as if we were still in. And yet that is exactly the position that we now find ourselves in. And the sole reason that I finally decided to join the Reform Party after staying politically homeless once the Brexit Party morphed into it. The sole reason that I decided to join the Reform Party was because it is the only party that will save the Union. And right top of my agenda is saving the Union, being the United Kingdom, acting as a United Kingdom. And that was what we were promised in Boris's manifesto. That's what we were promised, that the UK would leave the EU as one single United Kingdom. Major promise broken. So, reform will save the Union. But reform will also save our sanity. You know, I couldn't believe my eyes the other day when I actually picked up a Daily Mail. This is a national, high circulation newspaper. And the banner headlines on the front were that the Prime Minister knew that a woman didn't have a male appendage. I mean, is it for real? And yet it is. Common sense is going out of the window. And the Reform Party will restore common sense, but it will also restore liberty of opinion, liberty of thought, liberty of speech, something we always took for granted in this country. And now we don't have. Enslaved as we are to political correctness, enslaved as we're rapidly becoming to identity politics, we must reinstate a situation in which, as long as we don't actually stir up violence or stir up serious hatred, Britons are allowed to speak freely about what they believe. And yet we have a headline in a national paper telling us that Rishi Sunak has found out what Adam and Eve were all about. But there is something else. When we got Brexit, we thought we were going to be free to be competitive with the EU. We thought we were going to be free to set our own taxes, to set our own VAT, to determine what happened in our economy. And what have we done ever since we've left? We've shadowed the EU. Jeremy Hunt even raised our corporation tax to the level that they've got in France. He should have been reducing the corporation tax so that we were competitive with France. Recently, we have all been commemorating a Chancellor who actually understood that, Nigel Lawson. And Lawson said back then, if we reduce taxes, the Exchequer will take in more money. And people didn't believe him, but that is exactly what happened. Because if we're to be competitive, we need huge companies coming here, not AstraZeneca going off to the Irish Republic. We should be saying to companies, come to Britain. We have low taxes. We have low corporation tax. We have low personal levels of taxation. You can earn what you please in Britain. Instead of which we're saying the exact opposite, which is stay away, because this is a Conservative government with one of the highest taxes in recorded history. That is what is happening. And so I want to save the Union. And I want to see a proper, meaningful, real Brexit. And I want us to be economically competitive. In short, I want us to be a great country again. And that is possible. It is possible if people find courage. And the courage that they have to find is that they will vote for a third party. Now, actually, you know, it's not as grim as it might look. Because during the last general election, when I was standing for the Brexit party, I got on practically every doorstep this statement. We'd love to vote for you. We really want to vote for you, but we don't want to let Corbyn in. Because Corbyn terrified people. Starmer couldn't terrify a mouse. And so people may actually be willing to vote for a third party because they are not terrified by the prospect of one of the other two. Actually, they should be terrified by the prospect of either, but they probably won't be. So there is a chance that we can attract those votes. And in order to do that, we have to speak as the British people are speaking, who do not want their children taught that there are 72 genders, who do not want to abandon Northern Ireland as if it was nothing to do with the rest of the UK, who do not want to look at their pay packets and just in disbelief at the sheer level of state confiscation, which is what taxes actually are, who want serious education. They send their children to school to learn the things they can't teach them at home. They don't send them to school to be indoctrinated. And people want a health service that they can rely on. Those of us of a certain generation in this hall really can remember when if you wanted to see the doctor, all you had to do was roll up at the surgery that day. That's all you had to do, and you saw the doctor. And if you wanted the doctor to see you, all you had to do was book an appointment and he would be there either that day or the next, depending on the urgency of the request. So, that is possible. But it isn't possible so long as we've got a government which effectively believes that it is helpless. And it is because it is looking helpless that the unions are doing what they're doing at the moment, because they believe they've got the government on the run. And the government should be saying to the unions what they should have said to the EU, which is no, absolutely not. Yet they don't. And they negotiate, as they negotiated with the EU. And sometimes there is an effective outcome, but too many times there is not. And we need a government which recognises that it's there to do one thing, to govern. The Reform Party will govern. It won't govern what you think. It won't govern what you say. It won't govern your opinions. It won't attempt to indoctrinate your children. But what it will govern is making sure that Britain can compete with the most competitive economies in the globe. That is what we will do. That's one of the reasons why I've joined Reform. The big one, as I say, is Northern Ireland. There is no other party, which is even talking about saving the union, because they're pretending that the union isn't under threat, and the union is imperiled more than I have known it imperiled in my lifetime. So, folks, thank you for joining Reform. Now, go out and get somebody else to join Reform. You know what the best preachers say? They say, how many others have you brought to the truth today? So, bear that in mind and get somebody else to join Reform and put the word around as much as you can, because I do genuinely believe that this party can make the difference which we are all yearning for a party to make. Thank you.